Okay, here's a thought. What if everything you thought you knew about how your brain works, from just adding two numbers together to those really deep, inexplicable intuitions you get sometimes? What if that's only half the story?
Hmm.
What if your brain isn't just like one kind of computer, but maybe two running on fundamentally different rules?
That's a really compelling question, isn't it? And it's exactly what we're digging into today.
Yeah.
We're exploring this, well, pretty cutting edge hypothesis, the idea that our human brain might actually function as a sort of hybrid classical and quantum computer.
A hybrid.
Wow.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to really unpack the research, the arguments, particularly from Jay Alfred's work, and explore how our brains could potentially be leveraging the frankly mind-bending rules of quantum mechanics.
And this isn't just some abstract science experiment discussion, right? I mean, getting a handle on this could genuinely be a game changer. Understanding this kind of dual nature, it might unlock completely new ways of looking at human potential, creativity, maybe even things like meditation, these ancient practices.
Exactly. Connects a lot of dots.
So get ready, because you might have some real aha moments that could totally reframe how you think about your own mind.
Okay, so let's start with the big one, the question scientists have been, wrestling with for ages. Does the brain operate as a computer?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you ask that broadly, you often just get a flat no, but that feels a bit too simple, doesn't it?
It really does, because the precision, the wording of the question is absolutely crucial here.
How so?
Well, when we ask, is the brain a computer? The answer depends entirely on what kind of computer we actually mean.
Oh,
We're
okay.
talking about like a dumb terminal, a standard classical computer like the one on your desk, maybe a little 10-qubit quantum computer from a lab, or something,
Hmm.
something even more powerful.
Right, those are vastly different things.
Yeah.
Vastly different. It's like comparing, I don't know, a simple calculator to a massive supercomputer. They both compute, technically. But their capabilities, their underlying mechanics, they're just worlds apart.
Okay, that analogy really clears it up. So it's not a simple yes or no. It's about the type of computation happening.
Precisely.
And that precision, it naturally leads us to a really fascinating idea. What if different parts of the brain operate differently, maybe using these completely distinct ways of computing?
That's exactly the hypothesis.
Hmm.
While, large parts of the brain certainly operate in ways we're still trying to figure out, it's entirely plausible that specific components, specific regions, could function in a way that's remarkably similar to a classical computer.
Okay.
And this is what researchers like Professor Randall O'Reilly at the University of Colorado Boulder and his team and others too have been seriously exploring.
All right, so if the brain isn't just one monolithic thing, let's zoom in. What do our sources suggest about the left brain specifically? The idea is it shows characteristics that look a lot like a classical computer. Where does that come from? What are the specifics?
Well, first, if you look at the structure, the left brain, especially areas like the cerebral cortex, the prefrontal cortex, the basal ganglia,
Right.
it generally has a greater density of cells
Okay.
and more gray matter relative to white matter. That kind of organization points towards intensive processing happening within those specific regions.
Right, like localized processing units.
Exactly. It's a hallmark of classical, sort of sequential computation, specialized units doing focused work.
So structurally, it's kind of set up for detailed, focused processing in specific spots. What about how it thinks? How does its logic align with classical computing?
That's where it gets really interesting. O'Reilly's team found evidence that neurons in the prefrontal cortex essentially operate with two states.
Mm-hmm.
They're either active or inactive.
On or off?
Pretty much, yeah. Just like the on and off states in standard digital computers, they're effectively functioning as binary logic gates.
Okay, the fundamental ones knows.
That's the idea. And this either-or logic, it wasn't just O'Reilly. Researchers Andrew Newberg and the late Dr. Eugene Dechele, they also identified this and called them binary operators in the brain.
Binary operator.
Hmm. And if you look at it from the perspective of quantum cognition, which is this emerging field applying quantum ideas to cognitive processes, the left brain's operations seem to follow what's called the law of non-contradiction, meaning basically it uses dualistic logic.
Mhm.
Something is either A or it's not A. It's 1 or 0. It can't be both at the same time.
Right, which is exactly how a classical computer bit works. It's one or the other, never both.
Exactly, a critical distinction. So our conscious logical thought processes seem to be built on these fundamental binary switches, always making a choice between one option or the other.
And we see this in action, right, in brain scans and things.
We do. Functional MRI studies, fMRI, from O'Reilly's group showed specific left brain areas lighting up during, say, simple math problems.
Like adding and subtracting.
Precisely. Areas like the inferior parietal lobe, precentral gyrus, superior parietal lobe, supramarginal gyrus, middle temporal gyrus, they all showed activation. And another team, a Malaysian team, they found the left frontal lobe was particularly critical for multiplication.
So very specific areas for specific logical tasks.
Yes. And these are generally conscious computations. Our consciousness itself is often strongly associated with the left brain, largely because that's where our main verbal centers are.
Right, the language part.
Which allows us to articulate our perceptions, to, talk ourselves through a problem, engage in that step-by-step logical reasoning.
It really makes me think of those times you're consciously working through a math problem or making a really logical decision, weighing pros and cons. That's your left brain's classical processor, hard at work, handling information in that straightforward, linear, step-by-step fashion. And it's incredibly good at certain things.
Absolutely essential.
But then there are those other moments, aren't there, where an answer just sort of arrives, or you get that gut feeling that seems to defy all the logical steps. That feels like a completely different kind of mental gear.
It really does.
And this, I suppose, is where the right brain comes into the picture.
It seems to be an entirely different landscape, yes. The right brain is introduced in this hypothesis as fundamentally distinct. It's often associated with intuitive abilities and frequently characterized as operating, well, unconsciously.
Unconsciously.
Meaning it processes information in a way that's distinctly nonverbal and generally operates outside our immediate conscious awareness, our step-by-step thinking.
So are you saying that those moments, when the solution to something just pops into your head, seemingly out of nowhere, or that strong gut feeling that guides you even when the logic points elsewhere, that's not just random fuzziness?
The hypothesis suggests it's not random at all.
It could actually be the right brain's quantum processor, exploring countless possibilities simultaneously in the background, way beyond what our conscious left brain can track.
That's the intriguing idea. And there are some pretty incredible real-world examples that seem to lend support to this.
Like who?
Well, take Shakuntala Devi. She was often called the human computer.
Oh, I've heard of her. Astonishing math skills.
Astonishing doesn't even cover it. Finding the 23rd root of a 201-digit number in, seconds? But the fascinating part is she couldn't explain how she did it.
Really?
She often attributed it to God. The deep processing was largely unconscious. Then there's the mathematical genius Srinivasa Ramanujan.
Another legendary figure.
Same story, in a way. He also attributed his profound insights to God. Couldn't really articulate his methods. He'd often get these incredible formulas almost instantly. But then he'd have to spend hours, sometimes months, laboriously working through classical proofs to verify them. And sometimes, interestingly, his initial insights turned out to be slightly wrong.
Ah, so not infallible.
Not infallible.
Yeah.
Which strongly suggests a very rapid, unconscious computational process. The insight followed by a slower, conscious need for error correction by the classical system.
So these mathematical geniuses, these savants, they're almost giving us a peek behind the curtain into a brain function that's normally hidden, a kind of raw computation that the left brain then has to try and interpret or verify.
That's a great way to put it. It's like they're tapping into something operating beyond their conscious logical comprehension.
Accessing the raw output, maybe.
Perhaps. And Professor Michael Persinger, a psychologist, he even argued that the left brain often interprets these profound outputs from the right brain as a kind of separate sensed presence, maybe even God, especially during intense mystical or creative experiences.
Wow.
Our sources also mention cases of autistic savants who can instantaneously factor huge numbers, like 10 or 11-digit numbers, which is about 35 bits of information.
Instantly.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Feats that current classical neuroscience models really struggle to explain. These abilities seem extraordinary, pointing towards an entirely different, maybe parallel, mode of brain operation.
Okay, so this isn't just about speed, it's about a different kind of processing. And that implies a fundamentally different kind of logic too, right?
Why?
Not just the left brain's either or.
Exactly. Something far more expansive. There's a Chilean psychoanalyst, Matt Blanco, who developed a framework for understanding the unconscious mind. He described it as having a systematic logical structure, but with its own internal logic, which he called symmetric logic.
Symmetric logic. How is that different?
It's fundamentally different from the left brain's dualistic logic. And here's the kicker. This symmetric logic is remarkably similar to how a quantum processor works.
How so?
In quantum computing, a quantum bit, a qubit, can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. That's superposition. From a logical standpoint, this means A and not A can coexist without contradiction. It's a both-and logic, not either-or.
Both and.
Yeah. And neuroscientist Petro Gopich explicitly makes this connection, equating unconscious states with quantum superposition. He describes the dream world, for instance, as a place where paradox reigns and opposites merge to sameness. And he calls that an apt description of the quantum.
That's a really powerful comparison. The dream world definitely operates on a logic where contradictions seem to dissolve, where things can be two opposite things at once.
Giulia Battalotti at the University of Padua even presented a mathematical model based on quantum states that satisfies Blanco's symmetric logic principles. So there's theoretical backing too.
Okay, so if we were to sum up the core differences between the two hemispheres, according to this hypothesis.
In essence, the right brain seems to operate largely unconsciously, employing this both-and symmetric or quantum-like logic. The left brain, conversely, uses verbal, conscious processing based on either-or, dualistic, or classical logic.
Classical versus quantum, conscious versus unconscious.
Pretty much. As Jay Alfred put it back in 2006, this gives us an interesting insight into the nature of unconscious processing in the brain.
Yeah.
It works like a quantum supercomputer, using a different type of logic.
That's an incredible thought. So when you have that flash of inspiration or that gut feeling, or maybe you solve a really complex problem in your sleep and just wake up knowing the answer.
Yeah.
This deep dive suggests that might actually be your right brain's quantum processor exploring countless possibilities simultaneously, operating outside the linear step-by-step limits of your conscious mind.
That's the potential implication, yes.
But okay, the immediate, huge question that jumps out, the one that always comes up with quantum brain theories. How on earth can these incredibly delicate quantum processes survive in the brain? It's famously warm, wet, and noisy. That seems like a worst possible environment for quantum stuff.
Ah, yes, the warm, wet, and noisy problem. That has been the major hurdle, the main point of skepticism for decades. You're absolutely right. For a very long time, there was huge scientific skepticism about any quantum processes happening in the brain precisely because of that environment.
It just seems impossible, right?
Well, quantum coherence, that delicate state where qubits can be in superposition or entangled, usually needs extreme isolation and super cold temperatures in labs. The brain is, well, it's the exact opposite of that. It's a bustling, active biological system.
So how did early theorists deal with that, like Penrose and Hameroff?
Their early speculations focusing on microtubules within neurons were brilliant, but they initially struggled to provide a fully convincing answer to this environmental criticism. How do you shield these quantum states?
So how do you shield them? Has thinking changed?
This is where the field of quantum biology starts providing some really surprising and I think quite elegant potential answers.
Quantum biology.
Yeah. Jay Alfred highlights this point, suggesting that evolution may already be using clever strategies to block off quantum noise in unexpected ways, allowing for longer quantum coherence times.
Evolution found a workaround.
It seems plausible. And this isn't just wild speculation anymore. We're finding concrete evidence now that nature is using quantum mechanics in various biological systems.
Like what?
Well, migratory birds, for instance. There's strong evidence they use quantum processes in their retinas to sense the Earth's magnetic field for navigation.
No kidding. Birds use quantum mechanics.
It appears so.
Okay.
And photosynthesis, the process powering almost all life. It achieves incredible efficiency by using long-lived, coherent quantum states to transfer energy.
Wow. Okay.
Even closer to home, aspects of our own sense of smell, and maybe even certain parts of human vision might rely on quantum processing to work.
That's fascinating. So nature is way more sophisticated than we maybe gave it credit for. It's already solved these supposedly impossible quantum problems in other biological systems.
Exactly. So if it works for a bird's navigation system or a plant's energy harvesting, why couldn't our brains have evolved a similar trick?
Right. Which brings us, I think, to a really groundbreaking model proposed by Matthew Fisher back in 2015.
Yes, Fisher's model. It provides a genuinely plausible mechanism for how quantum computation could happen in the human brain. And it focuses on something surprisingly common: phosphorus atoms.
Phosphorus, like in our bones and DNA.
Exactly. It's abundant throughout the body, including the brain, which makes it a viable candidate just based on availability.
Okay.
But what makes his model particularly compelling is this. Back in 2013, Engineers at the University of New South Wales in Australia, they actually built the first working quantum bit, a qubit, based on the nuclear spin of a single phosphorus atom.
They actually did it in a lab.
They did. And crucially, they shielded this phosphorus atom with non-magnetic silicon atoms. Doing that allowed them to achieve record-high accuracy and much longer coherence times than expected. It proved experimentally that a phosphorus nucleus could reliably hold quantum information if protected correctly.
Okay, so we have real-world lab confirmation that phosphorus can act as a qubit. But why phosphorus? What's so special about it compared to, say, carbon or oxygen atoms?
There are several key reasons. First, the nucleus of a phosphorus atom has a very weak magnetic field naturally.
Left magnetic noise.
Exactly. Second, it has the lowest possible nuclear spin number, which is just 1/2. This inherently makes it less sensitive to random magnetic fluctuations or electrical interference from its surroundings.
So it's naturally stealthy in a quantum sense.
Sort of, yeah. And on top of that, it's often naturally shielded within molecules by surrounding atoms that have zero spin or by protective clouds of electrons.
It has built-in protection, too.
It seems so. Andrew Zurak, who reported on that UNSW research, put it nicely. The core of the phosphorus atom contains a nuclear spin, which could act as an excellent memory storage qubit thanks to its very weak sensitivity to the noise present in the surrounding environment.
Okay, so weak magnetics, low spin, natural shielding. It's like the perfect storm for a biological qubit.
It's a very promising combination, and this leads to significantly enhanced coherence times. There was another study, a Dutch-US collaboration in 2014. They achieved an incredible 99.99% accuracy and coherence times lasting over 35 seconds using these phosphorus nuclear spins.
35 seconds, that's an eternity in the quantum world, isn't it? Especially inside something like a brain.
It's remarkably long, yes. But the brain isn't just loose atoms floating about. It's incredibly complex, highly structured. How does Fisher's model account for protecting these phosphorus qubits within that complex molecular environment?
Ah, right. This is where specific molecular structures become absolutely critical. Structures called Posner molecules.
Posner molecules, never heard of them. They're clusters of calcium, phosphorus, and oxygen atoms. And according to Fisher's model, they act as crucial shields, like little protective cages, for maintaining quantum coherence in the biological soup of the brain.
Protective cages. How do they form?
The process Fisher outlines starts with pyrophosphate. It's a common molecule involved in energy metabolism. This pyrophosphate breaks down into two phosphate ions, which can become quantumly entangled.
Entangled, meaning linked, right? Whatever happens to one instantly affects the other.
Exactly, no matter the distance.
Yeah.
So these entangled phosphate ions then combine with calcium ions and oxygen atoms in the extracellular fluid, and they self-assemble into these specific structures, the Posner molecules.
And these molecules shield the entangled phosphorus inside.
That's the core idea. A Posner molecule is typically a cluster of 6 phosphorus atoms and 9 calcium atoms, K9PO46. They form a very specific stable structure, and this structure provides additional shielding to those entangled phosphorus nuclei inside, protecting them from outside interference from that thermal and electrical noise in the brain.
So it's like a double layer of protection, the phosphorus atom's natural properties, plus this molecular cage.
You can think of it like that, yeah, a biological quiet zone. And this protection is apparently incredibly effective. Fisher calculated that phosphorus nuclear spins protected within these Posner molecules could maintain quantum coherence for potentially, get this, 10 to the power of 5 seconds.
Wait, 10 to the 5, that's over a day.
It's an incredible duration for quantum coherence, especially in a biological system. It's a key factor that makes the idea of quantum computation in the brain seem much more plausible.
Okay, so we've potentially got the qubits, the phosphorus spins, and we've got a way to protect their delicate quantum states for a long time, the Posner molecules. But there's still that big neurological puzzle. How does the brain take all the information flooding in from different senses, different regions, and create one single unified perception of reality? It happens seamlessly, but how? Does Fisher's model offer an answer there?
It actually offers a really elegant potential solution to that exact problem. Jay Alfred calls it Fisher's mechanism.
Fisher's mechanism.
Okay. The idea is this.
Yeah.
You have numerous entangled phosphorus nuclei housed within these protective Posner molecules spread throughout different layers and regions of the brain.
Okay. Distributed qubits.
Right. And these nuclei exist in a superposed state holding multiple possibilities simultaneously, linked across potentially distant brain regions, because of entanglement.
Right, the quantum magic.
Then when these quantum states collapse,
Hmm.
which means when they interact with the classical environment and essentially choose a definite state.
The wave function collapses.
Exactly. When that happens, the electrons orbiting those phosphorus nuclei respond almost instantly. This subtle change in their quantum state alters the chemical properties of the phosphorus atoms themselves.
Ah, so the quantum event triggers a chemical change.
Precisely. And that chemical change then triggers a cascade of standard biochemical reactions. Neurotransmitters get released into synapses, neurons fire, activating specific circuits across the brain.
So it bridges the quantum and the classical.
Yes. The resulting wave of electrochemical signals integrates across all those initially entangled regions, leading to a single, cohesive perception or thought, which our conscious mind then interprets based on our memories and experiences. Alfred suggests that this simultaneous collapse of the nuclear spins of entangled phosphorus atoms in various layers and parts of the brain could be the answer to how we achieve that unified conscious experience.
That's a genuinely profound potential explanation. It's like the whole brain, through this entangled network, gets a glimpse of the whole picture all at once in this quantum superposition before it collapses into the single integrated reality we consciously experience. Like the quantum realm sketches the big picture and the classical brain colors it in.
That's a nice way to visualize it.
Yeah.
It allows for massive parallel processing and integration on a scale that's hard to achieve classically. Hashtag tag the brain's hybrid architecture. It's like man-made quantum computer.
Okay, what strikes me now is how this proposed structure, this mix of quantum processing potentially in the right brain and classical processing in the left, how much it sounds like the way we're actually trying to build quantum computers in labs right now.
It's a remarkable parallel, isn't it? The proposed architecture for the brain really does mirror the design philosophy of modern man-made quantum computers.
How so? What are the key similarities?
Well, for any reliable quantum computation, whether in silicon or in biology, you need at least two fundamental conditions met.
Okay, what are they?
First, you absolutely need quantum coherence to be maintained for long enough to actually perform the quantum part of the calculation, the superposition, the entanglement.
Right, the quantum states have to last.
In Fisher's model, with the naturally protected phosphorus atoms inside those shielding Pulsar molecules, potentially provides exactly that mechanism within the brain.
Okay, so condition one, maintained coherence. Check. What's the second?
The second critical condition is that you need a classical processor
Why class?
to read the output from the quantum processor, and this is absolutely crucial to perform error correction if needed. Quantum computations are powerful, but notoriously prone to errors.
Ah, okay. So the quantum part does the heavy lifting, but the classical part cleans up the result.
Precisely. And in the human brain, our normal cognitive abilities, particularly those binary operators identified in the left brain that we talked about earlier, seem perfectly suited to act as this essential classical processor. It reads the output from the right brain's potential quantum computations and checks it, corrects it, integrates it into our conscious thought stream.
So it's not just a quantum computer sitting there alone. It's a true collaboration, a hybrid system, just like the ones engineers are building today.
Exactly. That gives the whole idea kind of, well, an engineering level plausibility, I think.
It really does. And it makes me think back to Ramanujan, the mathematician.
Yes.
You said his lightning-fast insights sometimes needed months of verification and occasionally turned out wrong.
That's right.
That sounds exactly like this. The quantum processor delivers a potential answer, maybe incredibly quickly, but the classical processor, his conscious mathematical reasoning, had to meticulously check the work.
It's a perfect illustration of the potential need for classical error correction. The intuitive, perhaps quantum output, isn't guaranteed to be perfect. It needs the conscious, logical left brain to verify and refine it. This is precisely why current man-made quantum computers rely so heavily on sophisticated classical error correction algorithms to make their results reliable and useful.
It's the same principle, just biological versus technological.
It seems that way. And based on this parallel, Jay Alfred makes a pretty bold prediction. He suggests that quantum logic gates in the form of neural circuits will be found in the human brain in future neuroscience research.
Finding actual quantum gates in our neurons. Wow, that would be revolutionary.
It certainly would.
So this isn't just abstract theorizing. It feels like a potential blueprint, one that's remarkably similar to the cutting-edge quantum computing tech being developed right now. It puts the whole quantum brain idea on much more solid ground, doesn't it?
I think it does make it significantly more concrete and testable.
But of course, it's still an emerging field. There have to be limitations, areas where more research is desperately needed, right?
Mhm.
Hashtag tagged tag limitations and ongoing research.
Oh, absolutely. It's really crucial to emphasize that Fisher's ideas, while incredibly compelling and well-argued, still need thorough experimental testing.
So parts are confirmed, but not the whole picture.
Exactly. While aspects like the long coherence times of phosphorus nuclear spins have been demonstrated in lab settings, proving that the whole mechanism works as proposed within the brain is the next giant leap.
How do they plan to test that? It sounds incredibly difficult.
It is challenging, but there are plans. One key experiment Fisher himself proposed is to try and detect entangled Posner molecules directly in brain-like fluids.
How would they even do that?
The idea is to induce chemical reactions that are known to produce Posner molecules and entangle their phosphorus spins in a solution. Then, you'd separate that solution into two different samples, maybe in two test tubes, and look for quantum correlations, simultaneous changes in the light emitted or absorbed by the molecules in both samples, even when they're separated.
Ah, so looking for that telltale sign of entanglement, the spooky action at a distance.
Precisely. Finding those correlations would be strong evidence for entangled Posner molecules existing and persisting in a biological-like environment.
Okay, so they're actively looking for that smoking gun, the direct proof of these quantum phenomena happening in a system relevant to the brain.
That's the goal. It's also important to remember that not everyone in the field is fully convinced or agrees on the implications, even if Fisher's mechanism is proven correct.
Oh, like who?
Well, Sir Roger Penrose, for example. He acknowledges Fisher's model as interesting, particularly for explaining long-term memory, perhaps.
But not consciousness itself.
Right. Penrose still leans towards his and Stuart Hameroff's hypothesis, involving quantum effects in microtubules within neurons, as being more central to the generation of consciousness itself. He thinks Fisher's mechanism might be part of the puzzle, but maybe not the whole story for subjective awareness.
So different theories focusing on different potential quantum locations or mechanisms.
Yes, although there's an intriguing, optimistic possibility Jay Alfred mentions. What if Posner molecules are actually found inside the microtubules?
Wait, really? So both could be right.
It's a speculative but fascinating thought. If Posner molecules could form or function within microtubules, it might offer a way to synthesize or connect the Fisher model with Penrose-Hameroff ideas. Both could be partially correct and interdependent.
Yeah, it would be an incredible convergence. Okay, so this definitely isn't settled science. It's an exciting active frontier. The questions being asked are right at the edge of what we understand about our own minds.
Absolutely. It's pushing boundaries.
And if our brains really are capable of this kind of quantum computation using these mechanisms, can we do anything about it? Can we consciously influence or harness these abilities?
Well, that leads us down another fascinating path. A surprising connection to something many people practice every day, perhaps without realizing its potential quantum implications: meditation. This connection between these ancient contemplative practices and the very modern ideas of quantum neuroscience, it's genuinely one of the most intriguing parts of this whole hypothesis for me.
How do they connect? It seems like such a leap.
Well, think about it this way. Right now, labs all over the world are pouring resources into finding ways to extend quantum coherence times in their artificial qubits. It's a massive technological challenge.
Right, making the quantum states last longer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Jay Alfred poses this profound question. Is it possible that practices could have been cultivated in the past to lengthen these coherence times in the brain to derive specific benefits without the subjects knowing fully the science behind it?
Wait, so ancient cultures might have figured out how to stabilize quantum states in their own brains just through practice.
He believes the answer is yes. And he points directly to experienced meditators as potential masters of this internal quantum engineering.
That's a truly mind-bending idea. It suggests these traditions, maybe through millennia of trial and error, stumbled upon or consciously developed highly sophisticated techniques to basically tune their internal quantum processors without ever needing the language of quantum mechanics. Like, they wrote the user manual for the brain's quantum functions before science even knew those functions might exist.
Precisely. It reframes meditation not just as relaxation, but potentially as a form of active quantum state management.
Okay, how? What specific practices link up?
There's a type of meditation also called analytic meditation or insight meditation. It often starts with a question, a paradox, maybe a complex problem, posed by the classical, logical left brain.
Okay.
The practice then involves holding that question gently, exposing it, in a sense, to the intuitive, perhaps quantum right brain, aiming to generate a deeper insight, a novel solution, or what some traditions might call enlightenment or satori.
Ah, feeding the problem to the quantum processor.
That's the idea. And you hear these reports from meditators of split-second enlightenment, these sudden flashes of profound clarity and understanding. That timing aligns intriguingly well with the potentially short, yet computationally powerful coherence times needed for quantum processing bursts.
It fits the timescale.
It does. And these practices are often described as requiring extreme subtlety, a state easily disturbed. That description perfectly mirrors the known fragility of quantum states.
Wow. Okay, so it's like having this incredibly subtle, powerful user manual for the brain's most advanced, meaning quantum functions passed down through generations. Not as mysticism, but as practical. Quantum biofeedback.
You can almost frame it that way. It suggests these aren't just random rituals, but highly refined techniques.
So what are some of the specific techniques? How they map onto the requirements for maintaining quantum coherence that we just discussed?
We can actually group these meditative techniques into several key strategies, and the parallels to quantum state preservation are quite striking.
Okay, strategy one.
Quieting the internal and external landscape.
Makes sense intuitively. How does it link to quantum?
Well, the quantum requirement is clear. You need an extremely quiet, stable space. Quantum states are easily decohered, easily destroyed by noise, physical vibrations, temperature fluctuations, stray electromagnetic fields. In physics labs, physical isolation is rule number one for enhancing coherence.
Right. Keep everything still and shielded.
Now look at meditation. Traditional practices almost universally advise withdrawing to quiet places, reducing sensory input, physically isolating oneself from external hustle and bustle.
Cutting down external noise.
But crucially, it also involves quieting the internal noise, specifically reducing and stilling that constant stream of conscious verbal thoughts, the inner monologue, the planning, the judging.
The left brain chatter.
Exactly, the quantum effect. This dual isolation, physical and mental, effectively quiets the entire system. It reduces quantum noise within the brain's neural networks. By silencing that dominant left brain chatter, particularly in the verbal areas of the cerebral cortex, meditators create a more stable, less disruptive internal environment. This potentially allows those delicate quantum processes, maybe happening in the right brain, to persist for longer, extending coherence time.
So less mental static allows the quantum signal to come through clearer or last longer.
That's the idea. And it's not a new concept in meditative traditions. Ancient Buddhist and Hindu scriptures, going back over 2,000 years, explicitly state that conceptualizations which are deeply tied to verbal thought are actually a hindrance to deep meditation.
Fascinating.
Even modern physics touches on this. Physicists like Anton Zeilinger have shown experimentally that information itself, the very act of knowing something definite about a quantum system, can destroy its wave-like quantum behavior, not just direct physical interaction.
Just knowing collapses the wave function.
In a sense, yes. So by reducing the generation of useful information, reducing that constant conceptual labeling and analysis, which researchers Newberg and DeKeely noted is drastically reduced in brain scans of advanced meditators, you might be preserving the brain's quantum states.
Okay, that's quieting the noise. What's the next strategy?
Gentle observation and right brain activation.
How does that work?
Okay, quantum mechanics tells us that making a strong measurement, like definitively determining a particle's position, instantly collapses its wave function, destroying superposition.
Right, the observer effect.
But there's also the concept of weak measurements. These are gentler interactions that don't fully collapse the quantum state. They provide less information individually, so you might need many weak measurements to build up a picture, but they preserve the quantum superposition for longer.
Okay. Less disruptive observation.
Now think about the meditative state. It's often described precisely as that. Relaxed, non-judgmental awareness. Gently observing thoughts, feelings, sensations, without grabbing onto them, without forcing a conclusion or making a strong judgment. It's like making repeated weak measurements of one's internal and external environment.
That's a really interesting parallel.
The potential quantum effect is that this allows quantum coherence within the brain to last longer. You're gathering subtle information without constantly collapsing the underlying quantum states with strong, decisive thoughts. Alongside this, many meditative traditions explicitly aim to activate and develop the right hemisphere, the proposed seat of this quantum processing.
How do they do that?
Well, neuroscientific studies, like those led by Sarah Lazar at Harvard and Mass General, have shown that regular meditation practice can physically thicken brain regions in the right hemisphere, areas associated with attention, interoception, and sensory processing.
Meditation changes brain structure.
It appears so. And conversely, as we mentioned, fMRI scans often show a reduction in activity in key left brain areas during meditation. Remember those images of flaming reds in the left parietal lobule turning deep azure?
Yeah, a significant drop in activity.
So meditation seems to simultaneously quiet the left brain's classical processor and enhance the right brain's structures and activity. This actively encourages the symmetric, both and, logic associated with the right brain, which, as we've said, is the same kind of logic used by superposed qubits in a quantum computer.
Okay, quiet the noise, observe gently, activate the right brain. What else?
Tuning out internal noise,
Hmm.
using more noise.
Wait, using noise to fight noise, how does that work?
It sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually a cutting-edge technique in quantum computing labs now. The quantum challenge is that qubits are sensitive to all kinds of environmental noise. Trying to eliminate all noise is incredibly hard, so some researchers found a clever workaround. A team at the University of Chicago, for instance, managed to extend the coherence time of their qubits by 10,000 times. Not by making the environment quieter, but by introducing a very specific tuned noise signal in their case, an alternating magnetic field.
Why would adding noise help?
As one of the researchers, Kevin Miao, explained, with this approach, we don't try to eliminate noise in the surroundings. Instead, we trick the system into thinking it doesn't experience the noise. The tuned noise effectively makes the qubit focus on that frequency and become less sensitive to all the other random background noise. Evolution seems to use a similar trick in photosynthesis to protect energy transfer.
Wow, okay, so how does meditation do that?
Think about practices involving mantras, chanting, or very specific, finely tuned rhythmic verbalizations or visualizations.
Ah, the repetitive sounds or phrases.
Exactly. The hypothesis here is that these practices might be generating specific resonant frequencies within the brain's neural networks. These self-generated frequencies could act like that tuned noise signal, effectively helping the brain's quantum systems to tune out the random disruptive internal mental chatter and biochemical noise, thereby preserving quantum coherence. It's like using a specific kind of white noise to mask or cancel out the unwanted background interference.
That's fascinating, using rhythm and sound to create a quantum-friendly internal state. Okay, one more.
Maintaining optimal internal conditions through behavior.
What does that involve?
It's pretty straightforward, actually.
Yeah.
Quantum requirement. A stable, low-noise internal environment is crucial for coherence.
Okay.
Meditators' approach. Across many traditions, meditators are actively encouraged to avoid strong, disruptive emotional states and behaviors. Things like intense anger, lust, greed, jealousy. These states are understood to create mental agitation, stress, fatigue, basically a lot of internal noise.
Right, they disrupt inner peace.
The quantum effect. When these highly disruptive emotional states and their associated neural firing patterns are minimized or avoided, the overall level of electrochemical noise and correlated chaotic activity in the brain likely subsides. This creates a more pristine, stable internal environment, further enhancing the potential for quantum coherence to arise and persist. It's about cultivating an inner state conducive to these delicate processes.
So if you put all these strategies together, quieting the mind and body, gentle observation, right brain focus, maybe using mantras, cultivating emotional balance. It really does sound like meditators might have unknowingly developed an incredibly sophisticated set of techniques for stabilizing and accessing potential quantum processes in the brain.
It's a compelling convergence of ancient practice and modern theory. It's almost as if they discovered advanced principles of quantum state control and error mitigation long before physicists did, just by meticulously observing and tuning their own minds rather than external machines.
It certainly reframes meditation in a potentially revolutionary way. And it makes you wonder about the future of understanding the mind if this quantum connection proves solid. Hashtag tag tag the future of quantum neuroscience.
Indeed, this whole emerging field, call it quantum neuroscience or quantum biology of the brain, holds immense promise. As Jay Alfred concludes in his work, with the recent progress in quantum biology, there's confidence that quantum processes in the brain will be established and proven.
So confidence is growing that we'll find proof.
The trajectory seems to be heading that way, yes. And if confirmed, it would lead to a new understanding of how humans generate radical insights during meditation, as well as more generally in creative discovery in music, art, and science. It suggests a future where we move beyond just observing our mental phenomena to truly understanding the fundamental mechanisms, potentially quantum mechanisms behind creativity, intuition, and consciousness itself.
That really opens the door to some profound implications, doesn't it? Not just for understanding ourselves, but for what we might become capable of.
Okay, so let's think bigger picture. If the brain really does contain a quantum processor, and if these mechanisms, like fissures, are real, does that mean those almost superhuman computational abilities we see in rare cases, like savants, are those actually latent potentials within everyone?
That's one of the most exciting and perhaps unsettling implications of this hypothesis. It suggests a vast, largely untapped reservoir of cognitive capability that might be inherent in the human brain's design.
So why don't we all walk around calculating 23rd roots in our heads?
The argument is that for most people, most of the time, our classical processors dominate. Our highly effective verbal, logical left brain tends to filter, interpret, or perhaps even suppress the raw output of the potential quantum right brain. It keeps things orderly, logical, consistent with our learned view of reality.
It keeps us grounded in the classical world. You could say that. But the hypothesis suggests in cases where this dominant classical processor is somehow different, maybe damaged or temporarily muted, as observed perhaps in some autistic savants or during intense creative flow states or deep meditation, then these extraordinary, seemingly non-classical abilities can come to the fore.
They emerge when the classical filter is weaker.
That's the idea. And this leads to the tantalizing prospect that this new field, what Fisher termed quantum neuroscience, could potentially find ways to help people access or integrate these abilities more consciously, which could expand human potential like never before.
Imagine, what if those moments of genius, those savant-like flashes, aren't just anomalies? What if they're glimpses of a universal human potential, just waiting for the right conditions or the right training to be accessed more reliably?
It's a truly provocative thought about the future of human intelligence and capability.
And it makes me think, how does this potential innate quantum ability fit into our current technological landscape, especially with the explosion in artificial intelligence?
That's another critical implication, especially looking ahead. We're in an era where AI is advancing at an incredible pace. There are serious projections about AI potentially surpassing human capabilities in various domains within the next few years or decades.
Right, the singularity concerns and so on.
But if humans possess this innate quantum processing capability, it might offer a unique advantage, a different kind of intelligence that AI, at least current classical AI, might struggle to replicate. Jay Alfred, in a note from August 2025 referenced in the source, suggests exactly this. AI is supposed to surpass human intelligence in the next few years. Human brains, where innate quantum processing is highly developed, may be able to pace with developments in AI.
Pace with AI how? By being better at certain things.
Perhaps. It implies that our unique blend of efficient classical processing and this potential for deeply parallel intuitive quantum processing might offer a different kind of intelligence. Maybe more holistic, more creative, better at handling ambiguity or deep pattern recognition in ways that are fundamentally different from current AI architectures. It might not be about competing on pure calculation speed, but about leveraging a uniquely human, quantum-enhanced cognitive style.
So our quantum side could be our edge in the AI age, a different flavor of intelligence.
It's a compelling possibility, suggesting our evolutionary path might have equipped us in ways we're only just beginning to appreciate.
Which really brings us back to evolution, doesn't it? Framing this whole thing as maybe part of a grander evolutionary design.
It really does cast human evolution in a striking new light. The sources suggest viewing it this way. It seems that evolution, which gave rise to cerebral cortices at a late stage, has endowed humans with the ability to access and make sense of not only classical reality, but quantum reality directly.
Access quantum reality directly.
It implies we're not just passive observers of the quantum world described by physics, but potentially active participants, equipped with a biological mechanism, this hybrid brain designed to interact with and leverage quantum principles for thought, perception, and creativity. It's a profound evolutionary gift, perhaps.
A gift we're only just starting to unwrap. This deep dive really suggests we aren't just classical beings stuck observing a weird quantum world, but maybe we have a foot in both realms, built right into our own minds. #tag outro. And that feels like a good place to pause our exploration for today. We've journeyed through this truly fascinating hypothesis, the idea that your brain isn't just one kind of computer, but a sophisticated hybrid system.
Hmm.
We started with the concept of a classical left brain, handling that conscious, logical either-or thinking,
Hmm.
and contrasted it with the potential for a quantum right brain, operating unconsciously with a both-and superpositional logic. Then we dug into the really clever mechanisms that might actually allow delicate quantum coherence to survive in the brain's challenging environment, focusing on Matthew Fisher's model with phosphorus atoms shielded by those crucial Posner molecules.
And finally, we uncovered that surprising yet deeply resonant connection between these potential quantum brain processes and ancient meditative practices. We saw how techniques like quieting the mind, gentle observation, and maybe even mantras could be viewed as sophisticated methods for tuning our internal quantum hardware.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride. This deep dive hopefully has given you a shortcut to understanding a complex, truly cutting-edge idea, maybe offered some surprising facts, and sparked some new insights into your own consciousness, your intuition, maybe even your potential.
It definitely challenges us to rethink not just how we think, but maybe what we're fundamentally capable of.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. If our brains truly do operate with this dual classical quantum architecture, and if practices developed over millennia, like meditation, can indeed help us tune and access these quantum processes.
What new frontiers of consciousness, creativity, problem-solving, and even self-understanding might lie within our reach? What hidden quantum realities reflected in our own minds are we only just beginning to perceive and comprehend?
And what could unlocking that mean for the next chapter of human discovery and potential? Something to ponder.